Hello and welcome my friends once again to this Red Gaming Tech video of myself and Marta. Yes, I know it's been a little while since you heard from me. I have been a bit under the weather, not 100% still, but I am on the mend, and I'm here as always with the latest news from the gaming world from the last 24 or so hours as of the 26th of November, and we are going to start off today's proceedings with some news regarding PlayStation VR. So this time around we do have the folks over at Let's Go Digital to thank for this, and if that name sounds familiar, it should. They are the ones that discovered the early PS5 design patent back in the day. I know it wasn't even that long ago, but still. And this time around they have found a patent for a potential PSVR PlayStation 5 design. And you will, of course, find the article linked in the description below. It is in Dutch, so we'll either have to be able to read Dutch or crank up the old translator. But they have graciously shared their findings, showing some of the features that are on the patents, though. So the potential design for this headset for the PS5 would be bringing to the table things like LED lighting and haptic feedback, which of course we already see on the DualSense controller. So obviously it does sound kind of intriguing and a little bit weird for a VR headset to leverage haptic feedback. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but it obviously isn't surprising that they would try to make use of this technology, that being the DualSense and the haptic feedback, in other forms, because that naturally took a lot of time and effort to research, develop, and so on. Now, I wouldn't be surprised at all, even prior to seeing this patent, that Sony did have something planned for the PS5 for a potential virtual reality headset, because the PS4 VR headset, of course, did very, very well. It was arguably pretty affordable, still expensive, obviously, but compared to how expensive some of the other PC-based VR headsets were at the time, it was pretty affordable, and from everything I've read, fortunately didn't get the chance to try one out myself, it is the most comfortable for people who wear glasses, which I very much have to do, sadly. So obviously, just because we see a patent for something, as always, I always stress this, but just so you know, doesn't necessarily mean that we'll see the headset exist at all, or if it does exist with these particular features, look, etc. But again, it does of course add fuel to the flames, excuse me, that Sony are working on a PS5 VR headset, and again, I was kind of expecting them to at least be considering this for the next gen, given the success that they've seen in this arena previously. But we're going to move on now to some things for the PlayStation 5. Now obviously the PlayStation 5 is now out, available, etc. Except, is it though? Is it? With numerous people just unable to get their hands on a console, either because they didn't get fast enough with their pre-order, or the retailer just doesn't have enough stock to fulfill all the pre-orders that they took, which is the situation that I'm in. I placed a pre-order and sadly somehow I didn't get in fast enough, and I'm now just waiting. Playing the waiting game, and many people are in the same situation, and of course many people have tried and failed to get hold of a console since more stock has become available. But you have probably seen online, on Twitter and so on, that there have been numerous people who have, instead of receiving a PS5, have received things like cat litter or a Nerf gun from their Amazon order, which is a bit of a yikes to say the least. And well, there's been a bit of an interesting update. So there's a specific case to talk about first, and then a general statement. So we'll deal with the specific case first. So basically, a person by the name of Richard Walker Photo over on Twitter posted some CCTV footage which showed an Amazon driver allegedly delivering a or pretending to deliver, I should say, a PS5 shaped box before putting it back in the van and driving off. So they scanned it to show that it had been delivered, put it back in the van and went. Now obviously it's extremely lucky that this person had CCTV outside their home. Many people do not. Obviously they were very excited to expect their PS5 and except got nothing. Now this particular person did report, according to Eurogamer, that the person in question did drive to the local depot with the CCTV footage in hand and confronted the site boss, who did say that the person on camera was one of their employees and would be sacked. And there was a small statement given on this particular situation to the Oxford Mail, excuse me, and Amazon said, "We have very high standards for our delivery service providers and how they serve customers. The delivery associate will no longer be delivering on behalf of Amazon." Now, While it's great that this particular delivery driver has been dealt with, there have been numerous cases, as I just said, that people have just not received their order or have received something completely random instead of their PlayStation 5, like cat litter. No matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you poke the disc in that cat litter, it's not going to play Demon's Souls. And a statement was given to videogameschronicle.com from Amazon UK, and they did say that they're investigating what has happened to the orders. And they said, quote, "We are all about making our customers happy, and that hasn't happened for a small proportion of these orders. We're very sorry about that and are investigating exactly what's happened. We're reaching out to every customer who's had a problem and made us aware so we can put it right." It probably isn't going to take Amazon long to find out who exactly has been doing this, considering, well, that the company monitors pretty much everything, and obviously they monitor everything that's scanned and all the rest of it, so yeah, we'll have to see what's going on with that, but obviously not a great situation for this particular person, especially because it was for their son's birthday. It's yikes, and obviously the numerous cases where people have received random items instead of a PS5. It's not a good situation at all. Even if the availability was better, it would still be pretty bad, but the fact that, it's trying to find pixie dust makes it even worse. But speaking of that, we have some comments from Sony on the success of the launch of the PS5. Now, as I just said, PS5s have been extremely hard to get hold of, with thousands of gamers who missed out on pre-orders trying to get their hands on the very limited stock. Obviously the current world situation has made things, well, a bit more scarce than they previously would be, but obviously demand for these sort of things is always going to be extremely high. And Sony have said that, well, the launch of the PlayStation 5 was their biggest console launch ever. Now, Sony didn't provide any time frame for this claim, but do remember that back in 2013, the PS4 sold 2.1 million units in just 2 weeks. So it could be that the PS5 has actually surpassed this. I'm going to read the direct quote from PlayStation, which was on Twitter. They said, quote, "We want to thank gamers everywhere for making the PS5 launch our biggest console launch ever. Demand for PS5 is unprecedented, so I want to confirm that more PS5 inventory will be coming to retailers before the end of the year. Please stay in touch with your local retailers." Now, from my understanding, this is to help fulfill those pre-orders that just haven't been able to be fulfilled by the various retailers across Europe, UK, and of course the US. Many people just haven't been able to get their consoles, which is obviously frustrating. So if you're waiting for your PS5, perhaps you were like me, you got in with your pre-order but you weren't fast enough, there wasn't enough stock, they took too much pre-orders, there wasn't enough allocation, whatever. Sony are working to try and make sure those pre-orders are fulfilled sort of by the end of the year and by the start sort of early next year. Myself, fingers and toes crossed, I should be receiving my console before Christmas, but we will see. But yes, it's seeming like the PS5 console has been a huge success, despite, of course, the numerous issues of availability and so on, and the issues most likely caused by the current world situation. Sony still is, of course, counting this as a huge victory, but obviously the tale of next gen has not been told by any means. We'll have to wait and see over the years who ends up being on top for this current generation. Of course, with the previous generation, we did see pretty much domination from Sony the whole generation with the PS4. The PS4 just did insanely well versus the Xbox One and the Xbox One X. I think we're going to see a more even, equal playing field this time around in terms of sales, but we'll have to see, of course. Time will yet tell. Launch figures are, of course, very important, but with availability as scarce as it is, I think we need to, of course, look at the bigger picture, and we'll see who comes out on top over the next few months and, of course, years. But let's move on now to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, as we have a pretty significant update for the game, as it has delivered some much requested features and fixes. One of the biggest things that they have added, which I think is going to be pretty significant given the prevalence of this mode in other games, is there's going to be a choice now between performance mode, which is the standard dynamic 4K 60 FPS mode, and quality mode, which drops it to 30 in favour of a more consistent 4K picture. So, of course, if you're not familiar with how Assassin's Creed Valhalla works, it will drop the resolution if it, of course, runs into issues. But if you want to have that steady 4K but sacrifice frame rate, you now will have that capability with the latest update, which is pretty nice. Personally, I'm going to stick to performance mode because frame rate is more important to me than resolution or graphics. But of course, that's my personal opinion. The choice is now been given by Ubisoft, which I think is definitely a wise choice. By the way, as on a related note, you may recall that there have been various issues on Assassin's Creed Valhalla, especially as well as Watch Dogs Legion, in there being a performance difference between the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X versions. If you're wondering why that is, if you haven't checked out our video, Paul did do a video on why this is actually happening, so do check that out. It will be linked in the description below this video. Now, one of the issues that has been happening for the Xbox Series X version, as well as the performance issues that I just mentioned, is screen tearing. And Ubisoft have also promised less screen tearing on the Xbox Series X, as well as improved performance overall. Now, of course, I will link in the description below the full patch notes for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is version 1.04. I'm not going to go through the whole list because, frankly, it's a long list, and you didn't come here for me to sit here and read out patch notes. But I am going to give some highlights other than what I've already discussed. You know, the performance mode versus the 30 FPS mode. Some new visual enhancements. There's going to be more rune categories, improved stability and performance, improved experience on the Xbox Series S and X. And they have also addressed a VRAM and RAM leakage issue when alt-tabbing to desktop on the PC version. Now, that is just a few things from a very lengthy patch list, so if you've been having a specific issue that I haven't mentioned, do check out the link in the description below. But we are going to finish up with none other than Elden Ring. And I'm sure you guys are with me on this one. Elden Ring really feels like a game they have announced too early, because it has been over a year since we got the reveal of Elden Ring at E3, Xbox's E3 2019 presentation, and the only update we've gotten since then is a single tweet from Software which said, "Thanks for your support, guys, don't worry, we are working on it." That's not a direct quote, but that's essentially what they said. That it's not cancelled, don't worry, we're good. But that was it. We have not seen new gameplay, new teasers, no nothing. So obviously, expectations and hype for this game are through the roof because, well, it's a new From Software game. And FromSoft regularly put out games that can be pretty accurately described as masterpieces. So, we have now a bit of an update for you. We have a listing on Target.com for Elden Ring, which has been updated to reflect a June the 30th, 2021 release date. Now, obviously, it could very well be a placeholder because there hasn't been any official statement from Software, and I wouldn't really expect one. And if there is one, it's probably just going to be, we don't comment on news or rumours. That's given the lack of news on this, I wouldn't expect a response, but regardless, the current listing does show June the 30th, 2021. Now, this does actually make sense, to be honest, given that we have literally seen nothing. Mid next year makes sense. There are, of course, reports and maybe some slight expectations that we might see Elden Ring finally shown off a little at the Game Awards, but of course, that is just a rumour, an expectation. There's nothing official saying that it will be there, just that it might be there. We shouldn't take this as an exact release date either. Maybe it's just a rough indication that we will see Elden Ring finally come out summer next year. We'll have to see. Personally, I'm happy to know that the game is still alive. But I do feel like they revealed this too early. An entire year without anything. It's give me a crumb. A mere crumb of Elden Ring news from Soft, please. Anyway, guys, we'll have to see if we see anything at the Game Awards. I may do a stream at the Game Awards. Honestly, depends on how I'm feeling at the time. But that is me done for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Your support over the last few weeks and months has been insane. Really do appreciate it, guys. So give yourself a bit of a self clap or a hug or whatever. Anyway, guys, thanks again for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.